Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke is made possible by our guests and tax-deductible donations from friends and listeners like you. Join us in empowering stroke survivors with stories of wisdom, purpose, connection, and hope at www.beyondstillness.org.
This week on Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke, we spotlight guest John Lummis of Indianapolis, Indiana. John suffered a stroke on December 26, 2013. He has become a stroke thriver, returning to rehab facilities to connect with therapists and stroke survivors. John often shows up to public events in a superhero outfit as a way to motivate and inspire others. He has deleted the phrase, "I can't," from his lexicon and replaced it. John's story is entitled, How Can I? Thank you for joining us for part 1, John Lummis's story. Hello and welcome to Beyond Stillness. Stroke offers a powerful, life-changing shift in perspective. Each colorful memory creates a parable for life's greater teachings, a compass for journeys ahead, and inspired wisdom for unique growth. This radio show, Beyond Stillness, offers an hour of pause for storytelling and reflection. Ultimately, Beyond Stillness is a welcoming environment that reveres the moment beyond stroke's paralysis. Still moments unite humanity and divinity. I'm your host, Molly Bucola. This week, we welcome guest John Lummis from Indianapolis, Indiana. John suffered a stroke on December 26, 2013. He calls himself a stroke thriver. He often volunteers for medical trials at rehab facilities throughout Indianapolis. And John is known as superhero extraordinaire because he shows up to races and public events throughout Indiana in superhero costumes. John's story is entitled, How Can I? And we begin with a moment of pause. Today we pause and remind ourselves that we are much stronger and much more able than we sometimes think. Today we take a moment of pause to breathe, to become aware of ways that our bodies have recovered since the time of the stroke. Become aware of the ways that our strength, our patience, our mental fortitude, our hope have teamed up together in order to support and propel our recovery forward. Today, we try to shake off the term "I can't" and embrace the term "How can I?" We ask for the ability to problem solve and to push past our obstacles. And we ask for the vision to see our future as one of hope, connection, and purpose, so that we may share our wisdom with others.
It was the day after Christmas, 2013. I was sitting at my desk. My left arm went limp, and I couldn't move my leg. My son had called me to work on his truck that weekend, And I tried to explain to him that it was too cold and he couldn't understand me. So I repeated it again. He goes, "Dad, I still can't understand you." So frustrated, I told him I was just tired and I got off the phone. That's when I realized it was a stroke. With my right hand, I typed stroke in large font, not knowing what would happen next. My wife walked in soon after that, and I just pointed the screen. She told my coworkers to call an ambulance, and away I went. When I arrived at the hospital, I had regained some control of my arm and leg, but throughout the next 3 days, the weakness on my left side would come and go. Doctors called it stroke evolution. By day 3, I had totally lost use of my left arm and leg. I thought my life was over. And visualized myself as a couch potato holding the remote. As I lay there the 4th day in the hospital, having been diagnosed for the right side ischemic stroke, left side unresponsive, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to provide for my family. Financially, how was I supposed to do anything? For the first time in my life, I had no idea what to do next. What do I do? What could I do? When it's time to go to rehab, I knew I wanted to go to the best facility possible to give myself the best chance of recovery. Several hospital staff and my sister-in-law, who had been a nurse for several years, all highly recommended Rehabilitation Hospital of Indiana, better known as RHI. I needed a facility to kick my butt and was told this would be the place. I was accepted into RHI on December 31st, starting my rehab on January 1st. It was fairly quiet when I arrived on New Year's Eve. I went through the intake process and then headed to bed. I really didn't have anybody to talk to that night. It was all daunting to me. Our roommate was an elderly man who had recently suffered his second stroke. So I began to worry. Was he going to have a second stroke? I realized I didn't know much about strokes at that point. Just about all I knew was that the elderly people had strokes and hopefully returned home, and that's it. Now, I know young people can have strokes, and there could be the great response with rehab. The next morning, they showed me how to use my wheelchair and helped me wheel down for breakfast. They monitored that I was able to swallow on my own, which is a standard procedure for them. At that point, I needed to rely on others to get in and out of the wheelchair. And I knew what I couldn't do. I wanted to figure out how could I regain my independence. That first day, I met with a tall, thin, and confident occupational therapist in the exercise room. She had just returned from her maternity leave. When I'd asked the nurses about her, they warned me that she was mean as a snake, and that's very, very true. In our first session, she said, "No one is to help you. Figure it out yourself." Harsh but necessary words. This facility was, in fact, going to kick my butt. She told me if I feel unsafe, then I should ask for help. Other than that, I should try to do it myself. This boundary proved to be one of the most important parts of my physical recovery. In time, I learned there's a balance between doing things myself and accepting help. I used to take it personally when people offered to offer a helping hand. I learned to see it otherwise. I realized people are trying to be nice and helpful and want to do things for me. This is not because they think I'm unable, but because they just want to be nice. I mean, just like opening the door for somebody as you go into a facility, you open and hold the door for the next person behind you. So this one would be nice. Well, I completed my first days of rehab, observing other patients in their rehabs. I was there to learn as much as I could to work my butt off. I didn't want to burden my family. This was my stroke and not theirs. That was my goal for working so hard in therapy each day. I spent all my life taking care of people. I wasn't about to become a burden to my wife, kids, and siblings. My older sister stopped in one evening. She talked to me about getting involved in sport groups. I wasn't up for the negative, poor me type gatherings. I was trying to remain positive, learn how I could get back to some type of life. I wanted to focus on doing something about recovery, not wallowing in my sorrows. I later learned that my sister was pushing me to attend support groups to spread my positive can-do attitude. and to the other survivors, and she wanted me to inspire others. I also learned that talking with other survivors is doing something about it. The mental and emotional side of recovery are just as important as the physical. In fact, I found that mindset influences physical recovery. For the 10 days I was in rehab, I pushed myself to accomplish each task I was given in both OT and PT. I would anxiously wait each morning to restart. Their goal was to make me sweat, and they did every day. As I progressed in both inpatient OT and PT, I reached a point I can do more than I was asked of me. I was in therapy all day, every day, and the session stopped at 4 p.m. I knew I could do more, but resting was also part of the healing process. Patience was something I had to learn overnight if I wanted to succeed in this journey. I didn't consider myself a patient person. Before the stroke, I would work hard to get everything done and feel like I was in control. In stroke recovery, I did what I could and then had to be patient. Before the stroke, I used to work hard every day. My therapist explained to me that now, on my days off, are days my brain strengthens connections and heals. Fatigue is a big part of therapy. I push to the point that I need to rest. Fatigue is part of my everyday life now. I rest more often. I actually found many benefits to this lifestyle. Now I know I don't need to push 100 miles an hour every day. I appreciate the opportunity to slow down. I slow down to see things, experience things. Recently, I was riding in the car with my wife, and she asked why I wasn't talking. I shared that I was looking at the scenery, noticing details. The color of a barn, the texture of the sky, the reflections in the mirrors. At that moment, I was in awe. She knew this is uncharacteristic of me before the stroke. Before I struggled with patience, but now I see its gifts. It's really cool. Now on my way to work, instead of rushing, I stop to take photos of the sunrise and sunsets. It's different every day. After 19 days of inpatient therapy, I was discharged, sent home, and scheduled for outpatient therapy. This was 6 days earlier than I expected. Returning home was great. I was in my own bed. I could choose the time I do my therapy. I could eat whatever I wanted. My family was a bit nervous because they were told to make arrangements and take precautions. I was ready for the challenge, any challenge, really. For example, therapists told my family to rid the floor of rugs so I wouldn't trip. I was determined to navigate life normally. Now that I had outpatient therapy, I decided to transform my house into a makeshift inpatient facility. I would do range of motion exercises first thing in the morning before I engaged other muscle groups, spasticity, and tone. I went to therapy twice a week, and as we all know, consistency in practice is where we see improvements. So I was a diligent student and completed my daily homework. I eliminated the phrase, I can't, from my lexicon and replaced it with, how can I? As I was learning to maneuver around the house, I began adding chores to my therapy. I worked hard relearning tasks in one hand, carrying items, and serving as a functional adult at home. I credit the prompt, how can I, too much of my recovery. There's always a way, I said, to figure out how. In this case, how to complete the chores on my own, regain mobility and independence is while I was at it. Most therapy includes special equipment, so I found ways to duplicate those therapies at home. I would often reference my original OT statement, no one is to help you, you figure it out yourself. I was up for the challenge and still am. I bought various forms of weight training equipment for my kids over the years, and it all lives in my basement. That meant I really had to work on stairs. I wanted to commute to my home therapy gym each day. See what I did there? Instead of telling my family that I can't navigate the stairs, I asked, how can I navigate the stairs? It forced me to practice what I had been working on in rehab. At that time, I was using the cane. I carefully descended each step slowly. I was afraid of falling down every step I took. The consecutive steps were daunting compared to the 3-step platform at the rehab gym. In addition to the stairs, I turned the basement into my own obstacle course. I taped lines on the floor to walk heel to toe. I placed 2x4s on the ground to balance and walk across. I set a foam pad in the middle of the floor to test my heel to toe balance. On and on, I created a whole at-home gym with goods from around the house. Now I help stroke survivors figure out how to turn their I can't phrase into how can I. We use household items to progress in our recoveries. It's amazing what you can do with cans of food, couch pillows, desk chairs, and hardback books. I would go out at nighttime and then walk in the dark. Try to create a better reception between my feet and my brain. I was retraining my brain. That takes work and creativity. How can I retrain my brain? Therapy is an ongoing process that never stops until you stop. Some people think therapy is only a short appointment. In order to succeed, I learned I need to do most of the work at home. It's just as much of a mental process as the physical one. How can I is the most important phrase of my daily life. There's always a way. My first big social event was the St. Patrick's Day Shamrock Walk. My sister who passed away loved thanks to St. Patrick's Day. My family participated in this as a memory to her. I was determined to complete the Shamrock Walk. Having goals is always helpful for me. Emotions and purpose behind a goal drive the daily grind. On the day of the walk, my sister was nervous I'd fall on a 37-degree day. I was walking with my AFO, a single-point cane, and my arm in a sling, and wearing gear so I wouldn't be too frozen. My sister and brother-in-law walked just paces behind me, about 4 miles. We finished dead last, but we finished. They were taking down the inflatables as we crossed the finish line. My sister had wristbands made that said John's Journey. It was distributed to all my family members, and they wore them for months. When I reflect on how far I've come, I feel like a superhero. My last day of rehab, I told the therapist I felt like a Flash. That therapist actually had a Flash costume. He told me I could wear it, and that's where my persona began. Throughout rehab, I worked on climbing stairs. It was so difficult and frustrating. By the time I had already adapted the how can I motto, so while practicing stairs in therapy, I started to wonder, how can I work on stairs and climb as many stairs as possible? Some might call me an overachiever or a dreamer, but I had learned to break things into little chunks and knew how far they could take me. Years before my stroke, I participated in an event called Bop to the Top. It's a stair climb event to benefit Riley Hospital in Indiana. Participants climbed 36 flights of stairs, 780 stairs total. In the 80s, I completed this climb, and then my knees buckled and fell to the floor when the elevator got to the bottom. While practicing stairs in therapy, I had my eyes set on Bops to the Top again. I signed up for the event and asked myself, how can I? I practiced, trained, and gathered community around me. 5 of my therapist friends joined me for the event. It was a challenging event, and the monotony makes it a mental game. I showed up at the event in the Flash costume. I had to believe I was a superhero, and I realized that encouraged others too. That was the beginning. I've participated in at least 5 events each year for the past 10 years, dressed as a superhero. I've participated in all kinds of events, from stair climbs to 5Ks, half marathons, social events, and fundraisers. During the solar eclipse, I wore the Batman outfit, the Dark Knight, taking a selfie with the eclipse above my head. Every time I dress up like that, I feel like a superhero again. And I am. I believe in myself. I know that diligence and how can I attitude that helped me reach great heights. I dress as a superhero because I am a superhero. I show up in public events, you're reminded that you are a superhero. You've been through adversities. We all have, and you have the power to triumph. just ask yourself, how can I? Just commit to a daily practice and surround yourself with people who believe in you. Also, a suggestion I'd have to others is not only to do you need therapy, but you also need professional counseling. Your close family members can benefit from counseling also. It changes you physically, but mentally is where you need to really focus on most, but you need in counseling to complement it. People are excited and joyful and supportive when I'm in my superhero costumes. I wear the costumes and give back to the therapist who gave me my life back. I also wear them to remind people that they have control over their health and recovery. I return to RHI in costume and give talks to therapists and stroke survivors. I say I can do what I do because of what you do. Their support and challenge is life-changing. Yours can be too.
John, it's really powerful. Thank you so much for sharing. As we come to a close today, again, we settle into this moment, focusing on what we have to give post-stroke. John has figured out ways to volunteer his time, volunteer his wisdom, his space. We all have something to give. We all have wisdom. We all have a story to tell. And ears to hear. May we listen to others with compassionate hearts, creating a space of understanding, love, and hope. And may we, like John, offer our experiences as a way to support and inspire. And we give thanks. Thank you for devoting time and space to listen to Part 1, John Lummis's story. Stick with us for Part 2, John Lummis's interview. Each colorful memory creates a parable for life's greater teachings, a compass for journeys ahead, and inspired wisdom for unique growth. In this episode of Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke, we heard from guest John Lummis of Indianapolis, Indiana. John suffered his stroke on December 26, 2013. As a stroke thriver, John returns to rehab facilities to connect with therapists and stroke survivors. In this episode, John offered ways he transformed his home into a makeshift therapy gym, and reasons he shows up to public events in superhero costumes. John's story is entitled, How Can I? Again, thanks for listening, and remember, as part of the stroke community, you are more than supportive. You are inspirational.
If you are part of the stroke community and have a story you'd like to share on the show, please contact us. Email molly@beyondstillness.org.
Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke is made possible by our guests and tax-deductible donations from friends and listeners like you. Join us in empowering stroke survivors with stories of wisdom, purpose, connection, and hope at www.beyondstillness.org. Another way to support is to like, share, or subscribe to our weekly show. Again, thank you for devoting time and space for this week's episode of Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke.